Hey guys, this is Comic Uno and Comic Frontline, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 96. So this is a show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show, and let's get started. We go worst pick of the week to best pick of the week, and I have 20 books this week, so it's a pretty normal amount for me, so let's get started. Alright, moving on to number 20. Worst pick of the week is... Something fell, okay. Wolf Moon, issue 6. This is not even a horrible book either. There wasn't really that many bad books at all this week. Everything was pretty good, actually. Wolf Moon just kind of fell flat. I thought it was a disappointing ending. That's pretty much why. This whole book is about hunting for this wolf, and they destroy the wolf in the end. Everything's good, and then we find out there's more wolves. I was like... Seriously, that's how you're gonna end it? It's like, it felt like a waste of time. It's like, what's the point of hunting these wolves? And if there was more story to it, it would feel a bit better. But really, this whole story is about hunting wolves. And, oh, our lives are, you know, pathetic because we were affected by the wolf. Or someone in our family was affected by the wolf. But... That's all that happened in this series, and I was fully disappointed. I liked the first issue of Wolf Moon. I thought this could be a different, interesting twist on werewolves, and it just kind of fell flat for me. But the artwork was pretty good, fit the series very well. You know, not horrible series, it just was disappointing. So Wolf Moon, issue 6, gets 2.5 stars. Alright, moving on to number 19. Sadly, Grimm Fairy Tales, issue 110. Again, not a bad issue, just kind of fell flat towards the other books that came out this week. This is going against, not Beowulf's mom, Grendel's mom. Grendel's mom? Why does this sound weird? But, Grendel's mom, which is also very much into the Beowulf, epic that we get to see. And, yeah, also we also know that the Natalie, who's going out with Wolf, she was related to the original Beowulf, so I thought that was actually really cool. Hopefully Natalie survives, so we get an interesting story with her. But overall, it's just a lot of action, and also Mad Hatter or someone possessing the Phoenix character. So I was like, don't know how I feel about that. I'm not following Wonderland, so I felt a bit disconnected to that portion of the story. But it was okay. Just a big action issue. But the artwork was beautiful, and I am very excited to see where it goes. But I thought this is just a little lackluster from what we've been getting. So Grimm Fairy Tales issue 110 for me gets 3 stars. All right, moving on to number 18. Secret Wars, issue 1. Yeah, Secret Wars, the main big anticipated book for the week. I'm not a big Hickman fan, just want to give you guys that disclaimer here. I think he's very much a science-y type writer. I personally like character development a bit more, and there's not a lot of character moments here. It's very much clean-cut, world's ending, world ended. There are some moments I enjoyed, like Mr. Fantastic reacting to Sue's death or supposed death. There's a lot of light shows, you know, a lot of explosions, which is cool. But I will say, the facial expressions were really weird in this book. I mean, every page, there's always like... like, their mouths are always open, and it's just, like, really weird. This is like every page, really. If you look at every panel, just mouths open in a weird way. Here, too. I'm literally looking at every panel. Their mouths are just weirdly open throughout the whole issue. I mean, I know there's a lot of shocking things, but it just looked a bit weird. It like really is every panel. So... artwork actually was good, though. I liked the coloring for the art. I thought the action was pretty good, but it's just a very action-heavy issue. I was just looking for a bit more. Still, you know, still excited for Secret Wars. I just thought this is a bit lackluster of an issue, and I just didn't connect to it as much as I wanted to. So Secret Wars issue 1 for me gets 3 stars, and that was number 18. Alright, moving on to number 17. We have the other big main story event, Convergence issue 5. This has been kind of a lackluster main title for Convergence, and I've actually been liking Convergence overall. I like the tie-ins, but the main event hasn't totally been doing it for me, especially since it mostly connects to Earth 2. I do think we get to see a bit more connection to Convergence in this issue, but still too much Earth 2. I don't care about the Earth 2 characters anymore. World's End defeated that for me. That series just, like, overdid Earth 2 so much that I don't care about Earth 2 and Convergence. But the ending I thought of this issue was pretty good. Also like Dick Grayson a lot in the series overall. Him wanting to become Batman. I was like, alright, that's very Dick Grayson. So I enjoyed that. But yeah, going back to the end, I enjoyed the ending. We get to see, I want to give you the actual line. Citizens of Telos, there is no more need to fight. You will all have a place in my new reality as long as you pledge your lives to me. So now it's a new calling, and it's Deimos, I want to say his name is. I always get that confused with the Spider-Verse villain, but Deimos, let's call him for now. He said that, and he wants to rule the planet, so that's what's going on. Again, Earth 2, not so interesting, but there are some little interesting things going on here, like the ending and the Grayson moment. So Convergence issue 5, for me, gets 3 stars. And that was number 17. Alright, moving on to number 16, which is The Amazing Spider-Man, issue 18. A lot lower than I want Spider-Man to be. I want Spider-Man to be in top 5 land, but it's in 16 land right now. So this issue is just kind of very much filler. It's Parker Industries being destroyed, Black Cat still being Black Cat and evil, and that's pretty much it. I mean, just to sum it up, that really is all that happens in this issue. Very filler, and for me, I just don't care about the Parker Industries supporting characters or Parker Industries in general. So for me, this is just a bit lackluster. I'd rather see characters like Liz or Carly or Mary Jane. I don't really care about Anna Marie or Sanjuno or whatever her name is. Sanjara. Sanjani. Don't really care about her character. And then Ghost is a very lackluster villain. And then Black Cat being a villain is so weird. Like in other titles, I think they do it okay. But this title is just, especially between the chemistry between Black Cat and Peter, I'm just not feeling it. But the artwork was very good for the title. That's why it's a bit higher up. But overall, I thought this was very filler, but very excited for Renew Your Vows, which I'm excited to see what Dan Slott does with that, but this is just very fillerish. You don't really need to get the story arc. So, Amazing Spider-Man issue 18 gets 3 stars, and now is number 16 on the list. So, moving on to number 15, which is Convergence Batgirl, issue 2. Another one I don't like seeing solo, because story was actually pretty good. We get to see Stephanie kind of outsmart the situation of Convergence, because her true villain is to go up against Catman, who's lost everything in his life, but Grodd is following them, and Grodd becomes the true villain. But in the end, Stephanie's like, I don't need to defeat Grodd. That's not why I'm here. I just need to defeat Catman. So she talks to Catman. Catman's like, alright, I guess you're right. So she punches out Catman, and that's the ending. She's able to save her world and also rekindle her relationship with Tim. And I thought this was very much a Stephanie thing to do. I loved how she did defeat Catman. Dialogue is very Stephanie, and that's what I like about Convergence Batgirl. What I don't like about this issue is the artwork. I think it takes away a lot of the story. It's just not great artwork, even though the story and dialogue's pretty good. I do think issue 1 was a bit better. We get to see some more Stephanie moments, and I also like the Tim and Stephanie stuff here, though. I thought it was very much in the vein of their relationship that's been building for so many years now. And I like how they get back together. I thought that was good. It's a little on the dramatic side, though. I will say they pushed the romance a bit. And really, a lot of the Convergence books, they push romance, but in a good way. Because, I mean, there's so much lack of romance in the New 52, especially long-term couples. So I like to see a bit more of the romance. But yeah, overall, art, I think, really does bring down this title, but the story was pretty good. So I think Convergence Batgirl's worth it just to see Stephanie shine a bit. So Convergence Batgirl issue 2, for me, gets 3.5 stars. Alright, moving on to number 14, which is Ant-Man issue 5. Yeah, so Ant-Man is a lot lower than it usually is. I want to see Ant-Man a lot higher, but I was fully disappointed with this issue. And it's not the artwork, it's not the dialogue, and that's why I didn't make it like the last pick of the, worst pick of the week or anything. But The story disappointed me a lot here. I've been loving Ant-Man. I love, from the first issue, Cassie and Scott's relationship. I think it's so different from comics that we read today. You never really get to see the family shine, or at least in Marvel and DC. And you got to see that shine in Ant-Man. And then, you know, Cassie gets kidnapped. I'm like, alright, she could save herself with her powers. And then she just plays damsel throughout this whole issue. She lies on a table, can't save herself. And in the end, they revert all the progress these 5 issues have been doing. Scott leaves Cassie after Peggy accepts Scott and says, thank you for saving our daughter. And she's like, I think you should stay in Miami. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go. I don't think my family needs me. So all that build up, all, you know, him wanting to be there for Cassie, giving up the Superior Iron Man job, making this business is destroyed in 1 issue. And that disappointed the hell out of me. And also not knowing if Cassie has her powers or not. As you know, I talk about this a lot in my in-depth review, but one thing I loved about this title, yes, the relationship of Scott and Cassie. Yes, this is an Ant-Man book, but Cassie has so much history, and I understand Nick Spencer doesn't want new readers to feel lost, but how about the old readers reading this book that want to see Cassie's development? Also, I feel like it's a bit confusing that Darren Cross has powers because of Cassie, and you never reference Cassie's powers. It makes that, I think, more confusing for new readers. And I understand you don't want to talk about Young Avengers and all that. You don't have to talk about Young Avengers. But I do think they should talk about Cassie's powers, because she has powers. And this is the first series in such a long time that Cassie and Scott could interact with each other with being heroes. And I think that's why Cassie would be so upset in the end that Scott left, because Scott is her hero. And that's always been true. You go back to Young Avengers, which I end up rereading a lot, especially because of Ant-Man. I reread it, and Peggy even says it. Cassie loves being a hero, or, you know, loves Scott because he was a hero. And yeah, it's disappointing that they weren't able to see that shine in Ant-Man. So I was just really disappointed with this ending. I think it takes back a lot of what this series has been developing. So Ant-Man issue 5 for me gets 3.5 stars. Why it's a bit higher is because I do think the dialogue was very well done and the artwork is very well done, even though I don't agree with a lot of story points in this issue. So that was number, I want to say 14. Hold on. That was number 14. So we're going to move on to number 13, which is The Flash, Season 0, Issue 8. I enjoyed this issue. It was a lot of fun. We actually get to see a crossover between Arrow and Flash. So we get to see Felicity, we get to see Oliver, and they're trying to help Flash go to Argus to get the King Shark, which they're trying to dissect. And of course, Cisco, Caitlin, they're trying to help in the situation too. But in the end, Flash is trapped by Amanda Waller. So I thought this was a really good crossover episode in a comic. Because we get to see Flash interact with Argus, which is mostly an Arrow storyline. We get to see Oliver here, Felicity, but also see the things that we love about Flash shine. You know, Cisco and Caitlin working together, getting this random meta-human. But it's just, I thought the crossover element was really well done. I will say the issue is a bit on the cartoony side, but I like that for this series. I think it fits the cartoony thing going on with the story. But I will say something that did draw me out of the book was, now I have no idea when this takes place. This is called Flash Season 0, but it seems like it takes place in Season 1. But then you have Arrow Season 2.5 that does not take place in Season 3 of Arrow. So it confuses me because this is very obviously taking place in Season 3, because you get to see Cupid and Deadshot and all them, and I'm pretty sure they formed in Season 3 of Arrow. Yeah, definitely, because Cupid was in Season 3 of Arrow. That's her first introduction. So the way the timeline's working for this issue confuses me a bit. But The Flash Season 0 for me gets 3.5 stars. I had a blast with the issue. I enjoyed it. And if you're not reading Flash and you like the TV show, I recommend this book. It's a lot of fun. And you get moments like Oliver and Barry, you know, teaming up. Alright, let's move on to number 12, which is Convergence Speed Force issue 2. I like this issue. I thought it was a pretty well done issue. I just want to see what grade I gave it. Yes, okay. I thought this was a fun issue. It's pretty much this Iris and Jay and Wally working kind of together to defeat the Flashpoint Wonder Woman. And Wally, you know, understanding that he hasn't been the greatest father because of things that happen, but at the same time he kind of owns to it. And it's the way that he defeats Wonder Woman is getting the help of his children. And in the end, it's like, alright, well, now we have to save the city. We'll see Iris later? I mean, not Iris. See Linda later? I thought that was a bit weird. So yeah, I like the issue for the chemistry of the children, of Iris, Jay, and Wally, but I thought it was really weird, the ending, because most of the endings of these Convergence books is like, oh, honey, I'm home type things, and, you know, rekindling these relationships. But here it's just like, oh, the town is burning up. We'll see Linda later. It's like you haven't seen her in a year. You would think you'd go check up on her and then go back to the city. And then the kids agree. They're like, yeah, Daddy, I'll help you. So I thought that was a bit weird. But overall, the issue was good. Besides that cliffhanger I was a little bit upset with. But yeah. Overall, good issue. It makes me excited to see what happens next. Also, artwork was really well done here, too. I think it fit the story very well. So, Convergence Speed Force issue 2 for me gets 3.5 stars. Alright, moving on to number... Sorry about my throat. It's just bothering me. Okay, number 11, which is Star Wars Kanan, The Last Padawan issue 2. This is a really well done issue. I love Wiseman's writing. And, you know, I'm not a big Star Wars fan, but this issue was really well done. We get to see Kanan, or Caleb, as a young boy, you know, with the, I want to get these wars right, but the war starting where, you know, people go against each other. Again, not a big Star Wars fan, so sorry about not knowing the names, but, we get to see that his mentor saves him, and the mentor dies in this issue, and Caleb's on the run trying to figure out how to survive as a Jedi during this war, and how do you survive is by stealing, and he steals this guy's ship in the end, and he's gonna have to go on the run, and be his own hero. So yeah, I thought this was a very solid issue. Artwork is beautiful for this story, and I thought the emotional beats were here, the character moments, the narration was wonderful, and I think if I was a bigger Star Wars fan, this would be a lot higher up. I think because I don't have the fan connection, that's why it's just like, oh, it's a really great story. But if you're a Star Wars fan, definitely pick this up. But even if you're not, it's just a really enjoyable story with some great character moments here. And I thought the pacing was really well done, just a really well done issue 2 that gets me excited to see more of the miniseries and learn more about Caleb, and I guess in the long run, checking out Star Wars Rebels after I see all the movies. So, yeah, Star Wars Kanan, The Last Padawan issue 2 for me gets a solid 4 stars, and was a really fun issue to read. Alright, now we are moving on to number 10, right? We are up to number 10, which is Jupiter's Circle, issue 2. This has been a really fun series overall. I love Jupiter's Legacy. And learning more about the parents have been pretty cool here. And this issue is all dealing with sexuality. One of the heroes, Hoover, President Hoover, wants to out him. And even though there's been rumors that Hoover is actually also having an affair with one of his guards or something like that. So he's trying to blackmail him to say, alright, give all your friends' names up and we won't release these pictures. But by the end, he's like, I don't care anymore. And he doesn't end up releasing the pictures because he's able to blackmail Hoover. And we see that the heroes team accepts him for the most part, and that's the whole issue. I really enjoyed it. I thought they dealt with sexuality really well here. It was an interesting story, and it was interesting to see how they dealt with sexuality in the 1930s, and how they deal with the superhero culture of how you're different as not just a celebrity, but you have to always be perfect as a superhero. You're not just a celebrity. You know, sometimes people expect celebrities to make mistakes, but heroes, you do not expect people to, you know, not make mistakes, but obviously have a scandal in a way. So I enjoyed this. I thought this was a really well done issue. Really, really great artwork too. I like how simplistic it is. And well done issue. And I'm excited to learn more about these characters and see how these stories continue. So Jupiter Circle issue 2 for me gets 4 stars. Alright, we're moving on to number 9, which is Spider-Woman, issue 7. This was a fun issue. I didn't love last issue. I thought it was a bit on the wordy side. But this is going back to why I enjoyed the new twist on Spider-Woman. Because we get to see that she's kidnapped, pretending to be a villain. And she goes into this society of wives who had husbands / boyfriends as villains. And they're nuts too. They're totally nuts. And now we're going to see this total nutjob president destroy Spider-Woman. And that was the end of the issue. There's a lot of fun moments here. You know, Spider-Woman trying to get a dress, and she's like, oh, I don't want to ruin this dress. Of course the dress is going to be ruined by all this. It's interesting to see the society of wives that were, you know, wives of supervillains, and then seeing, hey, of course if they're a wife of a supervillain, they're probably nuts too. Oh yeah, they are. And you know, Spider-Woman just dealing with all this in a really cool way. Even the way she escapes is very Spider-Woman. She goes underneath the table as the girl's talking, goes on the roof. Let me show you that picture actually. Escape and go into the trunk. Just a very fun issue, and it's going back to why I really enjoyed Spider-Woman. So Spider-Woman issue 7 for me gets a solid 4 stars. I've been enjoying this story arc so far, so we'll see where it goes. Alright, I think we're up to number 8. Alright, number 8 is Convergence Harley Quinn, issue 2. A little lower than I expected because I really enjoyed this issue. A lot of these issues I enjoyed, but because it was such a good week, it just ended up becoming a little bit lower. But really, really enjoyed this book. I know I gave it 4.5 stars in an in-depth review, but after reading all my issues, I did go towards the 4 stars, but very close to being 4.5 stars. But yeah, with this issue, we get to see that Harley Quinn goes up against Captain Carrot, and outsmarts him in a Harley Quinn way. She pretends that she's all powerful. It says, oh, smoke bomb, atomic bomb coming, and she's able to defeat Captain Carrot. And she ends up giving her fish to her boyfriend, saying, oh, I don't even remember the fish's name, like Fishy or something. And the boyfriend's like, oh, Harley's gone. And now Harley's just going with Catwoman and Poison Ivy to, you know, to save the world, you know, just save the world, of course. It reminds me so much of Gotham City Sirens, which is such an awesome series if you've never read it. And it's great how they highlight Poison Ivy, Catwoman's, and Harley Quinn's relationship. And I think this was such classic Harley, and how she deals with the villain was a lot of fun, and I thought was done very well, which hasn't been dealt well with all the Convergence books, like I've been saying all along. But here I thought the villain really matched Harley, and the way she fought him matched Harley. So very fun issue, great artwork too here, and just a really, really interesting issue here. So Convergence Harley Quinn issue 2 for me gets 4 stars. Alright, moving on to number 7, which is Convergence Nightwing Oracle issue 2. Very, very cool issue here. I enjoyed it. I love Nightwing and Oracle. I love both these characters. I love their relationship. And this is very much, I think they balance Oracle and I was going to say this is very much Oracle's story, but I actually do think they balance Oracle and Nightwing's story very well here. And they go up against the Hawkman and Hawkgirl of a different universe, and Oracle's able to outsmart them, and by the end of this whole entire thing, we also get to see Black Canary also join the fight, so that was a lot of fun. But by the end, Barbara, you know, admits, like, yeah, you know what? The world's almost over, and now I notice how life is short, so come on, Nightwing, let's get married. And they do get married in the end. It was very cute, and if you like this couple, it was just a really well done issue for this couple. I loved a lot of the moments they had together, and also it's just a really awesome Oracle issues, showing how strong Barbara is. And I loved her narration saying, I used to be Batgirl, but now I'm something else, and obviously I could defend myself. And that's always been the badass thing about Oracle. It's like, yeah, she is behind a keyboard a lot, but she can still defend herself in other ways too. And then her relationship with Black Canary, you know, using Black Canary as the secret weapon, and then, you know, and also the helicopter was really cool that they used in this issue. Just a lot of small moments that I enjoyed, and Nightwing and Oracle teaming up and getting married in the end and having this computer-like wedding dress. Just a really well done issue. So Convergence Nightwing Oracle issue 2 for me gets 4 stars. It is a very much happily ever after for 2 characters that have been going out for a long time now and always deserved to get married but never had the chance. Alright, moving on to number 6, which is We Can Never Go Home, issue 2, which issue 1 was actually my pick of the week and blew me away. And this issue also blew me away, but again, there was other issues that came out, so it just went down a little bit on number 6. I wish it made top 5, but it didn't. There was just a lot of other issues that made top 5. But with this issue, we get to see that our main character, Madison, she has to leave her life, but she wants to say, at least get her close. She doesn't want to say goodbye to her parents, but her father does say goodbye, and you could tell that the parents actually knew she had powers, and they're part of this organization. And then we get to see the main guy character. He says, all right, well, we gotta get money, and he's like, oh, I know this person who, like, sells weed, and we'll get his money. And it seems like this guy knows him for other things, so it seems like, he's a little shady now. And Madison doesn't really think of it, but she kills somebody else. And she's like, oh god, well now I need to clean up. And now we have these Secret Service people going up against Madison. So they have to worry about that now, because it seems like that was connected to her parents and why she was adopted in the first place. But it seemed like her father actually did care for her. So overall, I thought there's a lot of great character moments here. Again, we get to see Madison trusting this guy, and I don't know if you should trust him. Again, it seems like he has these connections to other people, and I love the parent situation too. I love the moment with her and her father. I thought the dialogue was great there. Artwork is beautiful for this series too, and a great cliffhanger. It makes me very excited to read more We Can Never Go Home. So issue 2 for me gets a solid 4 stars. It was a very well done issue. Alright, now we're moving on to number 5, which is Convergence Justice League, issue 2. So yeah, this issue I thought was a lot of fun. We get to see why we like this team, the full woman cast team of Justice League. Zatanna having some awesome lines and them just teaming up. But what I loved about this issue is how they intertwine the villain story with Aquaman. At first, like, Aquaman, really? But he was a really awesome villain, and I love that it was Mera who actually was the one who defeated him in the end. But really, who killed him is the Sharks because of his blood. Thought that was a really well done ending. But the support of the Justice League made it awesome. Artwork was beautiful for this series too, and it just impressed me. I enjoyed Convergence Justice League overall. I do think issue 1 was a little bit better, but this was a great ending, and I wish this was an ongoing series. I definitely would obviously pick it up. So Convergence Justice League issue 2 for me gets 4 stars. Alright, now we're moving on to number 4, which is Convergence the Titans issue 2. This was a great issue. We get to see Roy trying to be loyal to his team, at the same time defeat, or I want to say his name right, we'll just call him like Fire Guy, because that's what he is. I really don't know his name. He's the villain. He wants, he keeps using Leon as a lure for him to defeat his own team. But by the end, he outsmarts the villain. He's able to get Leon, and then the Titans team's like, we'll deal with all the destruction in the city. You go spend time with Leon. And he realizes how much he loves his family, which is the Titans, and how much he, again, loves his team, and then how grateful he is to have time with Lian again. Just a wonderful father-daughter issue. You know, how much Roy would do to get Lian, but at the same time outsmart this villain, because he's like, I can't hurt my team. This is my family too. So if you love the Titans, you love these older versions of the Titans, I think you love this issue. It's really well done. Artwork is a bit cartoony, but overall, just a really, really well done issue. And I love Roy, and I think they did Roy so well in this issue, and not in the New 52, and it's a shame because he's such a great character. And we really get to see him shine here. So Convergence Titans issue 2 for me gets 4 stars. Alright, and that was number 4. So moving on to number 3, which is Hulk issue 16. Man, this issue blew me away. This is the last issue for Dugan till after Secret Wars or whatever. We don't really know what's going to happen to Hulk. And after Secret Wars, we don't know where these titles are going. But with this issue, we get to see Hulk actually want to de-Hulk. And hands the serum to She-Hulk. He's like, oh no, I don't want to de-Hulk you. I think you actually is the most powerful Hulk because you're able to control yourself. And by the end, he does de-Hulk for a little while, and he makes up with Betty. He makes up with Betty, and that's the end. It was such a great moment that they're able to forgive each other. And, you know, we haven't seen Betty and Hulk, or, you know, Betty and Bruce in such a long time, because either Betty was Red She-Hulk, or Bruce was handling being Hulk, or even, you know, honestly, we didn't even deal with Bruce dealing with Betty becoming Red She-Hulk. There's so many only small moments of them dealing with that. There's maybe one story arc, really. I thought they could have fleshed that out a lot more, which I think they did in only a few issues with Dugan's run. But there's just so many great moments. Seeing Hulk and She-Hulk interact with each other, and two characters that also don't really interact with each other as much as they should, because obviously they're cousins, but they're always doing their own thing. But just a wonderful issue, and a wonderful way to close, because you wanted more. You're like, what's going to happen next? And then you get to see the little weird story. Why I didn't make a little higher was Lyra's story, which is She-Hulk's daughter. I was like, oh, that was a little weird. It's just about her being queen and like controlling these two guys, and I was like, ah, that was an okay story. But I want to go back to Betty and She-Hulk and Hulk himself. Just really well done character issue though. Love the Betty interaction and the She-Hulk interaction. Awesome. So I wish there was more. Hopefully there will be after Secret Wars, but if you want really good character development and see these characters actually interact since it's been a while, read Hulk issue 16. It's a really well done issue. Alright, now we're moving on to number 2, which is Convergence Superman issue 2. Really well done Convergence issue. This is how you make the villains and the heroes actually make sense of why they're fighting each other. Because in the beginning we get to see Superman fight the Flashpoint heroes, but in the end Lois is also giving birth. So he runs to the Batcave, finds out where Lois is, and we find out that the Flashpoint Superman wants to save Lois because that was the only person that was nice to him in the Flashpoint universe. And then Thomas, understanding what it means to have a son, and this is the person that was best friends with his son, he was like, alright, I'll help you. So in the end we get to see a baby boy named Jonathan Samuel Kent, and they're happily ever after. Thomas says, protect your boy no matter what, and Clark's like, of course. Just a really well done issue, and it's what I love about Lois and Clark, just poured in these pages, and what was great about that first issue is poured into these pages. Honestly, I think in an even better way, because you get to see actual connection between the Flashpoint heroes and our main heroes, seeing a lot of good emotional beats throughout the issue. With amazing artwork too, let me add. And Lois being Lois, you know, being snarky while she's having contractions. But just a wonderfully done issue. And if you miss Lois and Clark being together, if you love the Flashpoint universe, I think this is the best issue with that in a really long time. Read Superman Convergence, a wonderful issue, 4.5 stars. Alright, moving on to number 1, which is Spider-Gwen, issue 4. I personally been really enjoying this series, and I really love this issue. I just want to give a little nitpick though, I do think the beginning could have transitioned a bit better with the other stories. It was a little disconnected. That was a very small nitpick. Artwork though is beautiful, and what I loved about this issue was the character moments, because Gwen is finally interacting with Aunt May after Peter's death, and Aunt May's like, why haven't you come to talk to us? We want to talk to you. You're very close to Peter, and we don't want to distance ourselves. It's very Aunt May, Uncle Ben type reaction. And obviously Gwen is Spider-Woman. She's fearful because in the news it seemed like Aunt May was against Spider-Woman, and she was for a while. But at the same time, it's like Peter loved this person, Spider-Woman, and I'm starting to love this person because of things she's doing. And it's just a really great moment between these two characters, and what you love about Aunt May going into Spider-Gwen. And then by the end, Spider-Gwen and just Gwen herself making a decision, how do I balance my life? How do I make myself happy? And she rejoins the Mary Janes, and I thought that was a really good ending. Just so many great emotional beats, and overall I've just been loving this universe. And this universe that the creators have been creating for Spider-Gwen, and I thought this was just a really well done issue with a lot of great dialogue and a lot of great artwork. So Spider-Gwen for me gets pick of the week. I just fully enjoyed it, and I'm really excited to see where this series goes. So this is Comic Uno episode. That was my pick of the week. Let me know in the comments below what was your pick of the week, what was your worst pick of the week, and everything in between. And of course I'll have Comic Uno episode 97 next week. Hope you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, in the description below, there's links for my comic book, Like Father Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father Like Daughter. I'll see you guys later. Bye.